So we will now gear up for our second presentation. We have Matt Van Every, who is with Canopy Weather. They are actually one of our Startup 405 Norman startups, and they're also a finalist with the Oklahoma Venture Forum for the most promising new business of the year. So that is really exciting for them. So we will have Matt present next. And Matt, I have made you a co-host, so you should have the ability to kind of take over the screen sharing, because I believe you're going to share some recent data with us. So
yeah, that's correct.
All right.
Let's see if I can get this going here. Get to see my nasty full screen there. Okay. And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So a little bit about Canopy Weather and about our history. We're a team of meteorologists here in Norman, Oklahoma. We're in the Startup 405 program. Our history goes back to 2009 when we invented the first ever hail size verification science. At the time, since the 1950s, hail size or hail maps, if you will, had been hand drawn since the 1950s, and we took that era into a whole new perspective globally, or well, not really globally, but let's look at the United States and turn that into something that can be done in near real time. That was when we founded a company called Weather Fusion. We went on to do address-specific products for the insurance industry. So that way, if a big hailstorm happens, like we just had here in just the other day here in the Norman area, you call in an insurance claim for your roof, then the insurance carriers can look up our data and verify that you have, in fact, been impacted by hail. Then we invented a wind speed product, which is incredibly hard to do for a whole host of reasons. Went into a GIS application, and then in 2014 we sold that company to a company called CoreLogic. They're a Fortune 500 company. Went to work for them for a little bit, and then left in 2016 and got into kind of more boots on the roof experience. We wanted to try to figure out, or some opportunities enabled us really to get on the roofs. We did a little over 2,000 roofs on 30 different hailstorms, and really trying to understand the question of, is it possible to relate meteorological data with converting that into a more practical application, but is it able to figure out, are we able to figure out if a roof is totaled by hail, by remote sensing, by computer analytics and AI? Is that possible? And that's what we set course with Canopy Weather. 2019, June 26th was our first official day as Canopy Weather, and that's where we're at now. One of give a broad spectrum of the industry. Today, government creates data sets. It's the National Weather Service, NOAA, that operates the satellites, that operates weather radar dishes and antennas and a whole bunch of things. They are congressionally mandated by Congress to protect life and property. So everything they do in terms of the infrastructure, everything that they do in terms of the data sets and the algorithms and everything that they create is geared towards protecting life and property. And that makes sense. It's perfect for what they're established to do. Where that starts to fall is in the private sector with business applications. Businesses have very specific need sets and requirements that are usually completely different than to protect life and property. And so what's going on right now in the industry, and what has been going on in the last 50 years of private sector meteorology, is that the government creates the data set. The private sector puts a little twist on that data and ships it back out and redistributes it. Big problems with that. Again, the data set that is being created is already designed for public safety. So there's questions in the data that are hardwired into the way that the data is collected and created that you can't easily repurpose. And so what happens there is that causes the ability for the weather data in the industry to provide meaningful lift to business is limited. And across the entire weather enterprise, we're starting to hit the limits of the capability or the lift that using that data set, government data sets and government algorithms, we're hitting kind of the ceiling. And a big part of the problem is that weather companies are using those same publicly derived data sets and data sources, and that forces the weather companies out there to focus on marketing and out-marketing and pricing, and it's very competitive. It races to the bottom instead of advancing the science and capabilities. And that's what we aim to challenge here at Canopy is let's go back to the drawing board. Let's go back to the raw ones and zeros and build practical enterprise grade IP for commercial applications. That's our objective. It's got to be practical. It's got to be built for commercial applications and enterprise grade. Today, what we do is we provide property-specific hail size and damage analytics to the insurance and financial services industries. And it's a mouthful. Here is an example I'll go into with what radar data looks like. Then I'll go into more of a practical application that we create after that, processing that information, and then go into some real applications just from recently, Yukon, Oklahoma, just got hit April 28th, I believe it was. And so we'll look at a case study. So this is just an example for if nobody knows what weather data is or radar data. It's a primary ingredient. And this is a storm May 4th, just the other day, that produced 4-inch hail here and 2-inch hail here in Norman, Oklahoma. And so that's what raw data looks like. We take the raw data, the ones and zeros behind all the pretty colors here. And we model that using artificial intelligence to determine characteristics inside the storm, facial pattern recognition technologies. There's a whole host of things that go into that. The result is a nationwide 24/7 days across the United States. We produce these hail paths of hail size and the probability of damage. Again, kind of back to that boots on the roof experience that we sought after in 2016 through 2019 is it's really interesting to take the raw data and create a hail size map, but maximum hail size, even if you have 3-inch hail, Lexington, Oklahoma just had 4-inch hail 2 days ago, but whenever you only have one hail hit on the size of a roof, that's not going to total a roof. And so we want to try to figure out, can we now convert raw data to hail size? That we're very good at. Can we convert that over to actual practical applications, which is damage? Here's a Yukon, Oklahoma map, and I'll go ahead and get into this. This is just a screen grab, and we'll go ahead and get into the full-scale mapping application. But this is damage probability. And it's right now based on neighborhood level. What's the probability that the storm caused a roof to be totaled by hail? Let me go ahead and switch screens over to the map. So here is the map from a hail size perspective. And all these dots are actual ground verifications with it being so local to us. Kind of like the other presenter said, that was a very key point. When you're in business and you're starting off, you must do the uncomfortable. You must do the things that are not scalable. And this opportunity with this local storm is it's not scalable. We can't go and go get ground truth verification at every storm across the nation, but with the local storm we can. And so that's what we found is the map of maximum hail size, and then going in these dots are of ground truth verification. And then if we look at it from a damage perspective, you can see a general pattern, but there's a little bit of a difference, a nuance. And so what's really interesting by that is you can have golf ball size hail. Here in Oklahoma, we're used to golf ball size hail, but you can have different damage characteristics throughout that, depending on the volume of hail. Is it wind-driven hail? There's a whole host of components that go into this. And then if we look at some of these case studies, I'll start up first in Yukon itself proper, and pull up that case. And what we found on this roof was fairly large hail. I mean, you can see there pretty big hail, about 2 inch to almost baseball size hail impact, and that's called a hail bruise. What's happening and how hail damages a roof is it knocks off these granulars, the things that give it its pretty color, also protect the asphalt and fiberglass underneath from UV rays. And once that becomes exposed, that's what cracks the shingle and leaks. So that's why hail causes damage. There's another fairly large 2 inch hail hit, and you can see across the rolly bird here several golf ball to 2 inch dents in there. But you go back and look at the map, and we're saying, well, we're not really seeing a lot of hail there. Maybe at most 1 inch. Damage probability of this particular single storm is on the edge of 20%. And so that's kind of interesting. So what's going on there? Well, it turns out that when we run a history of data through time, we found another storm in 2015, March 25th, with 2.5 inch hail and 80% probability that the roof was totaled back in 2015.
Matt,
And
we have about 1 minute left.
Okay, perfect. And so that's what we're doing and solving, and that's what's really exciting about this is now we can go in and determine that yes, in fact, we can create hail size and we can create the probability of damage. And so the end game of all this is that, especially now in COVID environments, right? The AI can handle things. So instead of adjuster coming out, taking a bunch of photos, trying to write up a scope of work, what our role is we can say, yes, it is totaled. Here's the 95% confidence that it is totaled. Just pay the check. Just cut the check and move on. That's the goal.
Wonderful. Was that the end? Sorry.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, I love how you wrap that up because it's kind of, hey, this is really what we're able to solve. I lived in San Antonio when we had like one of the worst hailstorms. I live by a bunch of dealerships, so you can imagine I think USA said it was the largest insurance process.
Yeah, probably 2012, I want to say.
Yeah, or it was 2015, 2016. We had a little tornado,
yep.
about a mile away from our house, and then just tons of hail. So
yeah, that one caused about $1.6 billion worth of property damage.
Yes.
Yep.
And I mean, it was a pain forever. I had to replace about 3 different tires with all the roof work. So, so how can the Norman community help Canopy Weather with their development and growth?
That's a really good question. One of the things about Norman, Oklahoma in particular, we've got a lot of access to some of the top weather researchers. Another beautiful thing about our area is cost of living is relatively low. And so that brings up another opportunity for small startups, is that there is quite a bit of technology and capabilities here in central Oklahoma, just not at the scale or equal quality, but just not at the scale as you have in other places across the country. I think the biggest thing that, as a small startup company, is access to computer programmers, people who want to learn, people who want to grow. Again, our cost of living affords small business to be able to start up, to be able to enable other computer programmers to grow their skills at an affordable wage. And I think that's a really interesting opportunity here in central Oklahoma.
In regards to that, what, I guess, languages or background are you looking for with your programmers who might be interested?
Yeah, great question as well. So we do everything on the cloud. So anybody who's familiar with cloud computing is a plus, but it's not a requirement. The other thing that we do is a lot of PHP and a lot of Perl. And Python actually is another big one. Python language is very fast at spatial recognition and pattern recognition. It's a really good code and application. So Python is where we see the near-term future.
Matt Allen asks, is the exit strategy to get acquired similar to your previous company?
Yes.
And then also he asked, could you talk a little bit about your business growth strategy?
Yeah, great question. So in this initial phase, and maybe to clarify Matt's question, our vision and our growth is we want to be creating these practical applications, this IP. So we intend to sell this off, this IP off, and build another IP. That's our intent and our growth strategy. With this particular product, growth is through partnerships and people who already have pipelines into those customer bases. So that's our growth strategy, and that we are executing right now.
Any other questions? Maureen asks, why did you decide to launch and start at 405?
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. Location was a big component that attracted us to it first. There's a whole bunch of startup programs across the state, and with Startup 405 being right on the research campus of OU, right across the street from the National Weather Center, a whole host of other folks and facilities that we meet with on a weekly basis, that was a big drawing factor that got us into the initial conversations. I would say the support's pretty excellent as well. We've been able to make some really good contacts and conversations with some development companies over in India. If we do decide to outsource some capabilities, those are ongoing, and that's really exciting. And that's one of the things I really liked about Startup 405 is that they've got a commitment to try to figure out how to grow the local economy and local startup here in Norman. And we've got a really good opportunity on location.
All right, Matt also asked, other than developers, what is your most important immediate need to get the business going or growing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thankfully, our science is pretty close to being completed. The next phase is more of the marketing angle to get the different stories and use cases perfected, and those ROI case studies. So somebody a marketer that understands how to prove business value, how to prove lift. That's a big challenge to find that talent.
All right, are there any other questions? If you would like to come off of mute to ask your question, feel free to do that.
Matt, as the city continues to have these conversations on identifying gaps and ways to help businesses, is there anything you're seeing that you've experienced firsthand that you could share that would be valuable to that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going through a challenging time as a society, as entrepreneurs, as consumers, and it's going to be, you know, we're kind of in uncharted waters, and it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. One of the biggest challenges I see, even with more statewide and national wide resources, one of my concerns, I guess, I have is that the programs that are in place today, I don't know, for me at least, I feel like the jury's still out a little bit on if it's really going to be a meaningful help to local businesses, in terms of the dollar amount that the local businesses are receiving, or in a lot of cases still aren't receiving. So that's something that I would say is something to keep in mind, is that it takes a lot more runway than I think most really understand that it takes. And so if there's small dollars that are being pushed into businesses, I think that's good. But we have to also be aware that it takes a lot more than most people think it really takes. You've got to have some good runway. A plane just doesn't go straight up. It has to run and pick up some speed. And we shut everything down, and it's going to take some time to get that momentum going again. And time takes money.
All right, thank you so much, Matt. We appreciate both you and Zach for joining us today and telling us about your businesses. As we kind of wrap up, and it looks like James asked another question in chat if you would like to reply to him via chat, Matt. For 1 Million Cups, a couple of upcoming events. We're still with the Innovation Hub trying to do some things virtually, considering that we're closed. We do have our bi-weekly Hack and Learns. We had one last night. We've been getting a lot of new people attending these. So just to kind of keep everyone in the know, I think with a lot of the changes we're seeing in the economy and industries, a lot more people are wanting to learn about coding. So that might help both of our businesses and seeing upcoming entry-level people within the tech industry that are being populated here in the area. After this, Grow with Google is hosting a Manage Your Business Remotely in Times of Uncertainty. There is a link right here, or if you go to the Innovation Hub Facebook page, we have an event. You can go ahead and you can find the link there as well. If it fills up, they usually do a YouTube live stream. So we're really trying to promote some of the tools that are available via Grow with Google. We also have some great resources from Stitch Crew that they have posted in regards to various guides for startups. So if you go to stitchcrew.com, that's probably the best way to get you there. Oops, sorry. And then also we have our great partners at More Norman Technology. They're offering free online retail courses and certification exams. So this is a great opportunity while people are getting back into the workforce to work on those certifications. Our next meetup will be June 3rd. Again, location is to be determined if we'll do it online or not. But I also wanted to quickly share a couple of things from our, Norman Economic Development team. If I can get this to push over to my other screen, the challenges of Zoom meetings. We have a couple of different updates to provide. These are some COVID resources from Oklahoma Commerce. Maureen, if you would like to come off of mute and tell us about any of those resources.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, and I know we're short on time. I was just going to mention there are several resources and information out there. The Department of Commerce has done a good job of issuing guidelines for different industries. They've most recently added office. They have restaurants, bars, pet grooming, just a variety of different guidelines. And if you go to scroll up, Kristen, you click on their Open Up and Recover plan and you can access that. And I'm sure everyone knows to go to coronavirus. I believe it's normanok.gov. The city of Norman released the Healthier at Home initiative. So there's great information there. And I just add that, the Norman Chamber, Visit Norman, More Norman Technology Center, OU, all of those organizations have some great information. So I'd encourage people to visit those sites. And then, of course, we have a really diverse organizing team with 1 Million Cups. And what is our email address, Norman, at 1millioncups.com?
Yes.
Reach out. I'm sure there's someone on our team that can help if you have any questions or want to provide input on the city's conversation on Reboot Norman and identifying ways that we can help our startups.
Mm-hmm. And thank you, Lauren, for putting all of those links in the chat. So there's links that you can copy and share with your community in case any of these are helpful resources. The last thing I wanted to do, Gina had a fun recommendation, is maybe for everyone to come on camera for 30 seconds so that we can take one big group picture of everyone who is left with us right now. So if you would like, come on your camera, or if you have a picture, that's fine too. And I will take a screenshot. So you have 5 seconds to get your camera on if you wanted to join us. All right, so ready? Everybody say cheese. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Again, I apologize that we had trolls come into our safe space of 1 Million Cups.
Guess that makes us important, huh?
Exactly, right? I guess if something bad happens, it means people are watching. So we hope you are all home safe and sound and continue to practice your social distancing. We hope to get back together with everyone in person soon. Don't forget to, partake in local businesses right now. Pick up some food from a local restaurant, buy something from a business where you can pick it up. Mother's Day is coming up, so you guys can go get some local gifts for your mothers and the women in your life, or those who take care of your family members. So we wish you guys the best, and we'll see you next month. Bye, everyone.